Hi there. In my video, The 7 Rules of the Gnostic Life, How to Become a Gnostic Part 3, I said about the necessity of doing the cleansing breath, or the breath of light, or breathing light. The reason why this is necessary, or at least I found it to be necessary for my practice, is because if you're doing regular pranayama, you leave yourself very vulnerable to negative emanations, and generally open to negative influences from the world. It doesn't really matter where they come from or their nature. It's just, and maybe it's just because I make myself too sensitive to what's going on in the world. But I consider I've been in error for neglecting one side of my practice in favour of another, which is to gain mastery at pranayama and kundalini rising and all that. But you've got to be very careful with this kind of practice. Layer yoga or energy yoga is not something to be trifled with, really. It actually does work, and sometimes it works a little bit too efficiently, which is the idea, of course, in one sense. But this practice was taught to me as a way of cleansing the psychic or spiritual layers or etheric layers around your body. Because although it's one thing to talk about the magic hamster, as I do in another video, and how occultism and mysticism merely reflects the world of the demiurge that we are presently in. Nevertheless, the realities exist, and and it's possible to breathe in the light as a sort of affirmation, I suppose, in a way, a ritual or practice-filled affirmation of the action of the Holy Spirit on this particular plane of the demiurge. And so that's really what this is. I'm not claiming any metaphysical powers or metaphysical results from this practice. I'm sort of saying it's more of an affirmation, really. I've got here a representation of the human body. Blimey, that body's got problems. Anyway, this sort of looks like a flux of pink Indians, as well, the sort of funny, strange haircut and dreadlocks and stuff like that. Anyway, what you should start to do is, when you're sitting comfortably or lying in bed or lying on the floor, ideally you should lie in a relaxed state of in a relaxed bodily position, which doesn't send you to sleep. But if it does, oh well, don't worry about it. But ideally, you should be relaxed but alert. And yoga postures are designed to keep you muscular braced, as Aleister Crowley calls it, in his Liber HHH. So you don't fall asleep, but you are very relaxed but alert, as I say. So in this physical state of alertness and yet relaxedness, you visualize, and if you can, basically, what's the color of your front door? And if you can answer that question straight away, you can visualize, okay? So it's not difficult, it's not rocket science. So you visualize a ball of perfectly golden light above your head, about the top of your head. And then you visualize a golden ball of light in the center of your chest, and then you visualize a golden sphere of light below your crutch, or and you visualize these. You try and maintain the images for as long as you possibly can. And then you visualize golden light, or it could be lavender light, but usually golden light, coming down and connecting these three spheres which you've created together. And when you've done this, you then, when you next breathe in, you breathe and you visualize white light coming up from below your groin, as it were, right up to above the crown of your head and down again. And you do this for seven times. So you create 7 layers of golden light around your body. And then what you do is that you visualize on the next breath golden light coming up behind you, as it were, and to the crown of your head and down the front of your body, and then back up again. You do that for 7 times, and you create a 7-layered image of golden light around your body, around your spine, your spinal column, following your spinal column. So basically, you're doing, creating 7 layers in one direction and 7 layers in another direction, which is 90 degrees to the first direction. So basically, you're just you're creating 7 layers of light, sort of like so, and then you're creating 7 layers of light which sort of go like so. So you say these are like, if you sort of think of it in 3 dimensions, it's like a kind of a sphere of 7 layers of light, which number actually 14 breaths. But you're creating 7 layers of spherical light around your body. Now, if you're really good at visualization, you can do that straight away. You can just visualize sort of 7 layers, like an egg or layers of an onion, manifesting around your body in lavender or golden light. And if you do this exercise every day in conjunction with your pranayama, then you will find better. You will find that things begin to get more stable and more balanced. It's a more balanced approach to energy yoga, or layer yoga, which means energy yoga, and it leaves you more protected, because on one hand you need to create vessels, but also you need to keep the vessels safe, because the vessels are made of one stuff, but what you protect them with is another kind of material altogether. And by creating these 2 materials together and blending them in one daily practice, you will create your psychic vessels on one hand, but you will also keep them clean on the other. And that's important because, there's a lot of things out there that like to attach themselves to you. A lot of people out there, needy people that attach themselves to you. And then there's also a lot of needy entities that attach themselves to you as well. And you've only got a finite amount of energy, so you need to carry out this exercise in order to keep yourself being bothered by these entities, these needy entities, these hungry entities, and all connect. I mean, because you're connecting yourself to the infinite source, and so even if an entity latches itself onto you, it can only drink from the infinite rather than from your finite resources. So then it's a little bit, it's actually redeemed. So instead of becoming a vampiric psychic energy or entity, you help it to redeem itself. Because all it can do then is feed off the infinite, and because it's infinite, there's an infinite amount of energy to go around for everybody. So there's no need to get bothered, get nasty about it, which some entities do, because they're frightened, and frightened of scarcity and frightened of their own destruction, their own imminent doom. So that makes them really insecure. And then, of course, when you get insecure, you get nastier and nastier. That's how these entities work. If they're just feeding off somebody's finite resources, but if you connect these energies or entities to an infinite source, not only do you protect yourself, but you also bring them into redemption. So it's a fantastic exercise to do and really quite essential. Not that you'll make very many friends amongst the demiurge and the archons by doing this, but to the poor blind creatures below the hierarchy of the demiurge, it's pretty good news, really. Even though they don't know about it, they soon will know about it. Um, so this is an important exercise, and I suppose really I should do this exercise as a path working, so that you can sit and relax and follow my voice, and so that you can actually do this, and then you'll get the idea of how to do it, and then you can go and do it on your own. But this is just a sort of brief outline of the spiritual exercise that I was taught, that really creates balance in your life, and protects you from vampiric entities that like to feed off people, because they've got nothing better to do. Well, because they got nothing better to do, but also they have to in order to survive. Poor things, because that's what life is like in the realm of the demiurge. Everything is scarce, and so everybody is scrabbling, to get what they can for themselves, and that goes for people as well as psychic entities. It's dog eat dog out there, really, and that's life here. But by connecting yourself to an infinite source of light, liberty, love, and life, you are connecting anything that comes along which might feed off you to that source as well. As I said, so it's a really, really nice thing to do, actually, for poor blind creatures that don't know any better. And well, you didn't know any better either before you began to acquire knowledge from whatever source you acquire it from. And so I acquired this knowledge, but I haven't applied it. It's the usual thing with me. I get things, but I don't apply them. It's all theory with me. I never practice. But you really do need to roll up your sleeves and get your hands into the dough and start mixing the bread, if you know what I mean. You've got to do the work. Otherwise, there's not much point in knowing anything unless you're going to apply it. Because knowledge does apply to this dimension. I mean, who needs knowledge when they're in the fullness of light? You wouldn't need it then, would you? This is all for our survival here, that we are given this knowledge at all. Otherwise, there would be no point in having any of it. It's not just for fun, or because you're being rebellious against your parents or something. This is for real. This is good stuff, good information, as my teacher always used to say. This is good information, information which is for your survival, but also for the increase in consciousness within this sphere of demiurge, where consciousness is at an all-time low, as it were. So that's my brief description of the breathing of the light, as I might call it, or the 7 breaths, 7 cleansing breaths, as you might see it called, as well in various books. If you could find an audio source about this cleansing breath, then do so. Otherwise, I'll try and make a video where I go through it as a relaxation exercise in itself, if you like, anyway. Okay, thanks very much for listening to this presentation.